The 2025 Modernization Fund has officially opened its framework for the agricultural and food industry sectors, managed by AFAIR. AFAIR is the agency for financing rural investments in Romania. The objective of this scheme is to push these specific sectors toward energy independence, physically reduce carbon emissions, and relieve pressure on the national energy system. To achieve this, the state offers a high-value financial incentive. Eligible projects can receive up to 100% non-refundable reimbursement for their installation costs. For a single applicant, that funding is capped at a maximum of 20 million euros. However, accessing this capital requires navigating a highly restrictive technical and financial architecture. This is a technical compliance program, not a simple equipment purchasing grant. The funding is strictly reserved for internal operational use. It entirely excludes commercial energy trading ventures. This brings us to the foundational concept of the entire scheme, auto-consum. Auto-consum, or self-consumption, is the requirement that the energy produced must be used directly by the facility that generated it. Strictly applying the guide's exclusionary rules is the only way to prevent a well-intentioned green energy initiative from being rejected. Before any technical planning begins, a project must pass the first layer of eligibility, the institutional and legal requirements of the applicant. Specifically, the applying entity must be registered with CAN code 3512. CAN, the Classification of Activities in the National Economy, uses code 3512 to designate electricity production from renewable resources. This specific code does not need to be active when you first apply, but it must be officially registered in the company's statute by the time of contracting. Large enterprises have the option to submit multiple funding requests under this program. But there is a geographic restriction attached. Multiple projects from the same applicant must target distinctly different production locations. Conversely, a single project file cannot encompass multiple geographically separated points of energy production. Proper corporate structuring and strategic site selection are mandatory prerequisites that must be locked in before drafting technical specifications. Once the corporate structure is validated, the focus shifts to the physical architecture of the proposed project. Engineers often attempt to design mixed wind and solar energy parks to maximize yield throughout the day. Firmly, the scheme imposes a definitive hard stop here. Mixed projects proposing both wind and solar capacities in the same application are ineligible. The applicant must commit entirely to a single renewable technology pathway per project, either wind or solar. The regulations are equally rigid regarding any energy infrastructure currently sitting on the applicant's property. These funds cannot be used to replace or upgrade older, pre-existing renewable energy capacities. They also cannot be used to simply expand the footprint of a capacity you already operate. The core technological mandate is absolute. The project must introduce entirely new, standalone megawatts into the system. Technical ambition is constrained by the AFIR guide, which demands single-source technology and entirely new capacity installations.
Beyond the choice of technology, a single quantitative metric dictates the sizing of the entire project. This is the 70% rule. A strict minimum of 70% of the newly produced electricity must be consumed internally by the enterprise. This means the installation size must be strictly correlated to the factory's historical energy demand, not simply the available land. This self-consumption model also dictates how energy storage, specifically batteries, fits into the project. Standalone projects that only install battery storage without new production capacity are ineligible for funding. Storage is only funded as an integrated component of a new solar or wind installation. Furthermore, there is a strict charging ratio required for these integrated batteries. This is the 75% rule. The battery system must receive at least 75% of its stored energy directly from the applicant's renewable production facility. Drawing excessive power from the national grid to charge the batteries violates the terms of the state aid. Proving the mathematical balance between internal factory consumption, proprietary production, and precise battery charging is the highest technical hurdle of the application. With the engineering verified, the applicant must then manage the financial mechanics and cash flow realities of the scheme. The AFIR scheme operates strictly on a post-payment reimbursement basis. There is no upfront state funding.
The applicant must first execute the works and pay the vendors using internal funds or a bridge loan. The trigger for getting paid back is compiling and uploading the complete request for reimbursement file, exclusively via the online platform. AFIR authorizes payment within 5 days of that request, but only from the date resources are available in their accounts. There is also a hard limit on the administrative frequency of these payouts. A beneficiary can submit a maximum of exactly 5 reimbursement requests over the project's lifetime. The conditions to unlock the 5th and final request are highly specific. This final reimbursement can only be submitted after the plant is commissioned and connected to the network. Despite waiting for grid connection, this final step must still be completed within the original execution duration outlined in the financing contract. Having the liquidity to survive the gap between paying contractors and receiving state reimbursement is the ultimate test of a project's real-world viability. Receiving the final reimbursement does not end the state's oversight. The post-implementation phase carries its own severe risks. During the mandatory monitoring period, there is a zero-tolerance policy for deviating from the indicators promised in the initial application. For example, failing to realize the exact storage capacity that was declared and used to gain extra scoring during the selection phase is a critical breach. Such a failure results in the termination of the contract and the initiation of state aid recovery procedures. This triggers a compounding financial penalty. ANEF, the National Agency for Fiscal Administration, will calculate and apply interest owed, backdated to the day the original funds were disbursed. Absolute technical and legal rigor during the early design phase acts as an insurance policy against catastrophic financial clawbacks.